So I've been thinking a lot lately about the differences between employee mindset and entrepreneur mindsets. And before anybody gets defensive in the comments, let me just say this first. I don't think that one path is morally superior to the other. I think we need employees, and I also think that we need entrepreneurs. I think different people are wired for different things, but I do think there are very different operating systems happening underneath those two paths, right? Different relationships to money, time, freedom, safety, structure, risk, self-trust, all of it. And if you don't understand those differences, it can create so much tension in relationships. All relationships, marriages, friendships, business partnerships, parent-child relationships, because people can deeply love each other and still fundamentally not understand each other's relationship to money, work, freedom, time, and risk. And I have experienced that firsthand, as I'm sure many of you watching have. I will never forget when I first told my parents, I am quitting my full-time job with benefits and a 401k match, and I'm going to go become self-employed. To my mom, that sounded fucking terrifying because my mom had been an employee her entire life. She'd worked for the same company for years and years. And, she had a stable paycheck and predictability, and there were benefits, albeit, maybe not great ones, but she felt secure and safe in that environment. My dad eventually became an entrepreneur himself after getting laid off from the company he'd worked for before I was even born and throughout my entire childhood and until I went off to college. And he ended up starting his own water well drilling business. And honestly, I don't even think my mom fully loved it when he did it. So then when I wanted to leave my steady job and go out on my own, it scared her. And the older I get, the more compassion I actually have for that because people don't give advice from your future. They give advice from the level of their nervous system. And that explains so much. Some people are wired more toward certainty and predictability, and some people are wired more toward expansion and possibility. And entrepreneurs, generally speaking, are often willing to temporarily feel unsafe in order to create long-term freedom. That's a huge difference. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs feel misunderstood because the people around them are looking at their decisions through a completely different lens. So, for example, I remember telling my mom that I wanted to spend thousands of dollars on a coaching program and then spend more money traveling to the live event attached to it. And she could think of every reason in the book why I should save that money instead. And some of her points were valid, but the entrepreneur brain is looking at that same situation so differently. The entrepreneur brain is thinking, if this collapses and decreases years of trial and error for me, if this expands me, if this connects me to people and opportunities and ideas I wouldn't have access to otherwise, then that investment pays for itself. And honestly, that event that I'm talking about, it changed me. I met amazing people. I learned valuable tools. I got inspired. I was really moved and I made friendships that I still have to this day. But somebody with a more security-based lens hears, wait, you spent how much? So it's the same amount of money, it's just a different lens. And this shows up in entrepreneurship all the time. I remember when I was creating my very first online course, a partner that I was with at the time was so supportive of me. But he also kept pointing out how difficult it was going to be to break into the Instagram algorithm and actually get people to buy the course. And he was not trying to be malicious or negative. He was trying to protect me. He didn't want to see me disappointed, and he didn't want me to feel hurt. But when you are trying to create something that does not exist yet, the wrong voice at the wrong time can absolutely get in your head. And after a while, I kind of stopped talking to him about it because every conversation left me feeling smaller instead of expansive. And that is something that entrepreneurs and visionaries need to understand. Not everyone is equipped to hold the energy of something before it exists. That doesn't make them bad people. It just means that they may not be the right person to process early stage dreams with, because visionaries often need room to believe in something before there's proof. And timing matters too. There is a difference between strategic feedback and fear based contraction. And sometimes support doesn't sound unsupportive on the surface, but energetically, it still creates contraction. Now, another huge difference I've noticed between employees and entrepreneurs is the relationship to time. People assume that because I am self employed, my schedule is just wide open. Like I can just stop whatever I'm doing and go do favors or run errands or whatever because I make my own schedule. And yes, technically there is flexibility there. But just because I make my own schedule does not mean that I don't have one. I absolutely operate from a schedule. I have clients depending on me. I have meetings. I have fulfillment work. I have creative blocks where I intentionally don't answer the phone or answer emails or make myself open to the public in any sort of way because I'm writing or planning or creating. And I also have a child. So intentionally, I try to get most of my work done by around 3 p.m. so that I can pick him up from the bus and, whenever possible, not have to jump back into work later that afternoon or in the evening. And that is intentional. That is life design. And I think people really misunderstand this part of entrepreneurship because they see freedom and assume lack of structure. But successful entrepreneurs usually become more intentional with their time, not less. Like my mornings are almost they almost never start with work. They start with me. I get my son off to school and then I usually give myself at least 2 hours before I even touch work. And that might look like journaling, reading, going to take a Pilates class, sitting outside in the sun, getting my natural red light therapy, okay? Um, Walking while brainstorming ideas. And then throughout the day, I will take frequent breaks to let things integrate, you know? And I know that some people might hear that and think, wow, that must be nice. But part of the reason my life looks like that now is because I intentionally built it that way. You know, it took me probably 10 or 11 years of entrepreneurship to get to this point because I did buy back some of my time. I hired people to do simpler tasks that don't match the value I've placed on an hour of my time. And that right there is another huge difference between employee and entrepreneur thinking. Employees are often taught, what will someone pay me for an hour of my time? Essentially, they're letting someone else, their employer, place the value on what an hour of their time is worth. But entrepreneurs eventually start asking, okay, what is an hour of my time actually worth? And we place that value ourselves. And once that shift happens, you start protecting your energy differently. You stop insisting on doing every little thing yourself because at a certain point, doing everything yourself is not noble. It's a bottleneck. You become the bottleneck in your business. And honestly, everything is going to cost you either time or money. And time is our most valuable resource. So that is one of the biggest entrepreneurial mindset shifts ever. Everything costs either time or money. Sometimes the most expensive thing you can do is insist on doing everything yourself. I saw this with a business client partnership once. One of the partners was amazing administratively, but she was constantly bogged down in low level administrative work and couldn't fully step into the visionary role of the business because she was buried in maintenance mode all the time. And one day I mentioned buying a course on how to use Asana more efficiently. And she literally like swung her head around and looked at me like, why would you spend money on that? Like, I think she literally said out loud, why? And I remember thinking, because I am not paying for information. I'm paying for speed. I'm paying for systems. I'm paying for pre-made and ready templates. I am paying for implementation. I am paying to get my time back. Could I have figured all that out myself eventually? Of course, yes, that is in my skill set. But as an entrepreneur, I'm thinking, okay, wait, how can I buy my time back? Whereas employees are often taught, how can I save money? Again, same situation, but a very different lens. And honestly, I think this is where so many fights and misunderstandings happen in relationships because usually people are not actually fighting about money. They're fighting about safety. They're fighting about freedom. They're fighting because of their conditioning or their identity, or it's their nervous system. They're fighting about trust, about fear, about possibility. One person is trying to create safety, the other person is trying to create freedom. And both people think they're being responsible. That is the disconnect. So if you are in a relationship with someone who operates differently than you do, I really encourage you to stop trying to convince each other that the other person is wrong or stupid or reckless or lazy or unrealistic. And instead, get curious, like genuinely curious. Ask each other, what what actually makes you feel financially safe? What scares you most about money? What excites you most about money? What did your parents teach you about work and security? What does freedom look like to you? What does success look like to you? Do you value predictability more or do you value possibility more? Do you value time freedom more or do you value consistency more? Because you may realize you're not actually fighting each other, you're fighting each other's conditioning. And once you understand the lens someone is looking through, a lot more compassion becomes possible. And if you're an entrepreneur watching this and feeling deeply seen right now, this is a huge part of the work I do inside the Vision to Execution Accelerator. Because building a business is not just strategy, it's nervous system work, it's identity work, it's learning how to trust yourself, it's learning how to stop outsourcing your decisions and your worth and your timing to everyone else's fears. It's learning how to actually move your vision into execution without burning yourself into the ground in the process. So, if this conversation resonated with you, I'll put information about the accelerator below. I hope this helps and I hope you have a beautiful day. Bye.